police opened the coolers inside his studio apartment, they didn't find food. They found 9 heads, some still with the flesh attached to the bone. Others scraped so clean they looked like medical specimens. Between the heads, arranged with precision, 8 pairs of severed arms, legs, hands, all packed into 3 camping cooler boxes and 5 oversized storage containers. The apartment was barely 200 square feet. There was almost no room left for a person to stand. Every single victim had posted the same message online before they vanished. "I want to die." And every single one of them got the same reply. A man, anonymous, patient, understanding, offering to help them do it. The man who sent those replies was Takahiro Shiraishi, 27 years old, thin, soft-spoken, unremarkable in every way. He worked as a scout in Kabukicho, Tokyo's largest red light district. His job was to approach vulnerable women on the street and recruit them into the sex industry. He was good at it. People in Kabukicho warned each other about him. They called him the creepy scout. In the span of 56 days, between August 22nd and October 17th, 2017, Shiraishi murdered 9 people inside apartment 203 in the commuter town of Zama, Kanagawa Prefecture. 8 of his victims were women. 3 of them were still in high school. His Twitter handle translated to a single word: Hangman. The first victim was Mizuki Miura. She was 21. She'd been posting about feeling suicidal for weeks before Shiraishi found her. He replied within hours of her most desperate post. The message was gentle. He said he understood. He said he felt the same way. He said they didn't have to be alone. They could end it together, side by side, so neither of them would be afraid. Miura agreed to meet him at his apartment in Zama. When she arrived, Shiraishi had no intention of dying. He drugged her drink. He sexually assaulted her while she was unconscious. Then he strangled her, took the money from her purse, and dismembered her body in his bathtub. He stored her remains in a cooler. Then he opened Twitter and began searching for the next victim. This is the part that is hardest to absorb: the speed. Miura was killed on August 22nd. By August 28th, Shiraishi had killed again. By mid-September, 4 people were dead. The bodies were accumulating faster than he could dispose of the evidence. His apartment had become a charnel house, and he was living inside it, sleeping, eating, scrolling through Twitter, surrounded by the dismembered remains of the people he had murdered. The second victim shattered any remaining framework for understanding this case. Kureha Ishihara was 15 years old. She had never met Shiraishi. She had never been to Zama. She posted once, about feeling alone, about wanting to disappear. Within 24 hours, she was inside his apartment. The age gap was 12 years. She was a child in her first year of high school. He was an adult man who had refined a method for locating the most isolated, most desperate people on the internet and offering them exactly what they wanted to hear. The victims kept getting younger. After Ishihara came Hinako Sarashina, 19. Then Hitomi Fujima, 26. Then Akari Suda, 17 years old. Then Natsumi Kubo, also 17. These were not women who had made elaborate plans to die. Most of them had posted about suicide in moments of acute crisis. A breakup, a fight with parents, a wave of depression that felt endless. Shiraishi was waiting. His response time was often under an hour. He understood that the window to manipulate a suicidal person is narrow. and he had trained himself to strike inside it. By early October, neighbors had begun to notice a smell. The apartment complex in Zama was unremarkable. A beige, 3-story building near the train station, the kind of place where everyone keeps to themselves. But the odor coming from apartment 203 was impossible to ignore. One resident later described it as rotting meat that seeped through the walls. Another said it reminded them of a dead animal trapped inside a vent. Nobody called the police. Nobody wanted to believe what their senses were telling them. This was Japan. This was a quiet commuter town full of families and office workers. A smell coming from a neighbor's apartment meant spoiled food or a plumbing problem. It did not mean 9 dismembered bodies decomposing in coolers 10 feet from where you ate breakfast. Then came the victim who would end everything. Aiko Tamura was 23 years old. She lived with her family in Tokyo. On October 21st, she left home and did not return. Her brother, whose name has been withheld from public reports, knew immediately that something was wrong. His sister had been struggling, but she had never disappeared before. He did what Shiraishi had not anticipated anyone would do. He logged into her Twitter account. What he found stopped his heart. A user with a handle translating to hangman had been messaging his sister for days. The messages started gentle. Empathy, shared pain, the promise of companionship. They escalated to a meeting. The last message was a photograph of a train station near Zama. The brother did not wait for police bureaucracy. He contacted a woman known publicly only as Yumi, a friend of his sister's, and together they devised a plan. Yumi would create a fake Twitter account. She would post about wanting to die. She would wait for the hangman to bite. Shiraishi replied within hours. The pattern was so ingrained, so automatic, that he didn't pause to consider whether this new account might be a trap. He invited Yumi to his apartment. She agreed to meet him. Then she called the police. On October 31st, 2017, Halloween, officers from the Kanagawa Prefectural Police arrived at apartment 203. They knocked. Shiraishi answered the door. He looked calm. The officers asked if he knew a woman named Aiko Tamura. Shiraishi said yes. He walked them inside, past the coolers, past the storage boxes, past the saws and knives he had used to dismember 9 human beings, and pointed to a container near his bed. "She's in there," he said. Inside that container was Aiko Tamura's head, and inside the other containers were 8 more. The forensic inventory took days. 9 bodies, each severed into multiple pieces. Heads separated from torsos, arms separated from shoulders, flesh scraped methodically from bones, in some cases boiled to accelerate decomposition. Some remains were so thoroughly cleaned that identifying them required DNA testing. The garbage collection service had been carrying away bags of evidence for weeks. Human tissue, wrapped in newspaper, placed in the regular trash pickup. Sanitation workers had handled it without knowing what it was. But the most disturbing discovery inside apartment 203 was not the bodies themselves. It was the timeline. 9 people killed in 56 days. That is 1 murder every 6 days, and those were not evenly spaced. Shiraishi killed 2 people in the final week alone. He was not spiraling. He was operating and not losing control. He was operating a system that was becoming more efficient, and he showed no sign of wanting to stop. When interrogated, Shiraishi confessed without hesitation. He described each murder in sequence, not with remorse, but with the flat precision of someone recounting a work process. The meeting, the drugging, the sexual assault, the strangulation, the dismemberment in the bathtub, the storage of body parts in containers he bought from a local home goods store. He explained that he targeted women because they were easier to overpower, and because sexual assault was part of the motivation. Money was secondary. He took whatever cash his victims carried, but the amounts were small. The primary drive was power. There was one victim who did not fit this pattern at all. Shogo Nishinaka was 20 years old, the only man among the 9 dead. He had never posted about wanting to die. Nishinaka had been searching for his girlfriend, one of the women Shiraishi had already killed. He tracked her last known communication to apartment 203. When he arrived and confronted Shiraishi, demanding to know where she was, Shiraishi killed him, not for sex, not for money, to silence a witness who was getting too close to the truth. This is the detail that separates Takahiro Shiraishi from killers who simply exploit vulnerability. Nishinaka died because he loved someone enough to search for her. He died doing exactly what Aiko Tamura's brother would later do, following a digital trail to apartment 203. The difference was timing. Nishinaka arrived before the police did. At trial, Shiraishi's defense team planned a strategy that could have spared his life under Japanese law. They intended to argue that most of the victims had consented to die, that Shiraishi was not a murderer, but an assistant to suicides that would have happened anyway. If accepted, this could have reduced his charges from aggravated murder to consensual homicide. Shiraishi himself destroyed that defense. On October 1st, 2020, standing before the Tokyo District Court, he abandoned his lawyer's strategy and pleaded guilty to all 9 murders. He admitted the suicide pacts were a lie from the beginning. He had never intended to die alongside any of his victims. The offer to die together was bait, nothing more. The judge sentenced him to death on December 15th, 2020. Shiraishi declined to appeal. In January 2021, the sentence was finalized. Japan's death penalty system operates in near total secrecy. Condemned prisoners are not told when they will die. They wake each morning not knowing if guards will come. Families of victims are not notified in advance. The public learns of executions only after they have occurred. On the morning of June 27th, 2025, guards came for Takahiro Shiraishi. He was 34. He was led to a gallows inside the Tokyo detention house and hanged. The announcement came hours later, Japan's first execution in nearly 3 years. The father of one victim told NHK that he would rather have seen Shiraishi spend his life reflecting on the crimes he committed than simply losing it through death penalty. 9 lives, 56 days, one apartment in a commuter town where neighbors smelled death and looked the other way, a social media platform that connected a predator to the most isolated, most desperate people he could find, and gave him the tools to hunt them faster than anyone could stop him. The Zama 9 murders changed how Japan talks about suicide prevention and online safety. But the fundamental vulnerability Shiraishi exploited has not disappeared. It is still there, every day, in the posts of people who feel alone and are waiting for someone to reply.